So I'm delighted to be here with Petra Alul Mercer from JA Malta and also from Gemma. We're talking over these 12 weeks about topics relating to money and the relationship we have with finances in order to empower women. And these are nice, short, sharp topics that we'll be breaking down into really good bite-sized chunks. And the first thing, thank you so much for being with us, Petra, and thank you for bringing this to the She Word. I think the first topic I want to touch on is something that we finished season 1 with a conversation with 3 young women, women of the future. And when we spoke about what scares you for the future, that wonderful young lady, Mariah, said, I know that I will never be able to afford a house. And this is something that, for me personally, I've taken very much for granted because I've moved around, I've moved countries, I've been putting off buying a property all of my life. So it's never really been something that's bugged me. But this was a young lady who's studying for a fulfilling and a great career, saying that even no matter how much she works, she doesn't think she's ever going to be able to afford her own home. And it suddenly occurred to me, how is this and why is this? So how is financial relationships, money relationships affecting young women today? And that topic just sounds so huge.
Yes, yeah, it is one of the key areas that really worries me, because yes, I am a mother. I do have 2 young daughters, you know, who are Generation Z or Generation Z, and unfortunately, these skills are not being taught in school. Plus, there is a lot of pressure from social media, you know, on not only on the impressions on how they look, but also these quick schemes, you know, get rich quick schemes that they're constantly bombarded
These
with.
are the things that we come in on the unrelated chats where someone says, hi, how are you? And you say, I'm fine, thanks. And they come and say, can I help you earn 100,000 euros this week? That's what we're talking about.
Yes, exactly. Listen, I mean, first of all, those things don't work. You know, it makes no sense. Don't listen to them, ignore them. There are it's just another Ponzi scheme, and don't fall for it 100%.
And the Ponzi scheme that you just referenced goes back historically to when this was all happening decades ago.
Yes.
Nothing's really changed.
No.
There were schemes decades ago for people to get rich quick, and they just were a big scam.
Yes, no, exactly. So one, it starts off, they're not being taught at school. We weren't taught at school about how to manage your money. It was my parents that taught me. So nothing from that has actually changed. So how are they picking up the tips, the tools, you know, in order to be able to come up with things sort of like, will I, or dream about, will I ever own my own home? Because rent is increasing, and it's scary, you know, it's scary for them. And obviously there's a whole issue around anxiety, and which makes things even worse. So we're also looking at financial well-being, being stress-free. So one of the key things to understand is look for guidance, okay? Look for guidance from right people. Understand that it's important to save. It's important to budget what you're earning. And in fact, you had one of the activists who was...
Antonella,
yes. Who was really, who brought up this subject, you know? So I don't feel ready to go out into the world, and I don't have the skills. How am I going to manage money? Things are really expensive, and that's why we're here to push as much as possible, you know, to be able to teach these young adults the importance of a retirement plan, okay, for example.
But how do you sell a retirement plan to an 18 or 20-year-old who's probably taking home one of their first significant paychecks. How do you turn around to a young woman of that age and say, okay, great, you got your first paycheck, but guess what? I'm going to suggest that you take a portion of that out and put it aside for 30, 40 years time.
Yeah.
Because certainly for me, that
No, for sure.
that didn't work.
For sure. No, I know it didn't work for me neither. But actually, when you break it down, okay, so private pension schemes, the minimum that you need to pay is about 40 euros, 40
Okay.
euros a month. So break that down into 30 days. It's probably less than a cappuccino. So if you look at it, it's going back to the psychology of money. If you look at it from that aspect, then it's different. I understand if you've got a student who's on a stipend of 100 euros, and immediately by direct debit, you're taking that 40 euros out. That's painful, that hurts. But if you look at it from a different perspective, what do you say to yourself, how much do I spend every day? Do I buy a coffee and do I buy, I don't know, a croissant or whatever they buy? It actually comes to more than what you're going to be paying into for this pension scheme. And young people, young adults, they want to see self-gratification immediately. They want to feel that rush. So something in the long term, 34 years time, come on, are you serious? They don't see that. But if we turn it around, to make it more tangible, then there is a bigger chance of them buying into it.
Now, I assume because when we spoke about this, my first question to you was, why do you want to have this conversation with people about financial empowerment and financial freedom? And you said, because this is something I believe very strongly in. And when we spoke about J.A. Malta and we spoke about Gemma, I said to you, what is this? And they're actually non-profit. This service that you're offering to guide young people is a non-profit service.
Yes.
Where they can find this assistance.
Yes.
So before we come to the end of this topic, just one word, one statement that will drive home to these young women who are in the position of Mariah and Antonella and Althea coming into starting their future. Why? One word. Why should they think about financial freedom, independence, and good maintenance?
It's
good
a skill.
governance.
It's a skill, okay? You need to learn the skill in order to be able to continue doing what you enjoy doing. The more in control you are of how you're managing your money, the better you will end up taking the various decisions you would need towards life. We can help you understand even more the skills that you need. And these are clever kids, they start realizing things for themselves. If we can get you to stop and think before you be so impulsive, then I know personally that I've done my job, because I'm making you think. And that's what it's all about. So that you can spread what you're earning, wisely, intelligently, and not only think about the now, but also think about, the future which is coming. And things change so rapidly. Come on, we just passed through COVID. From one day to the next, we had to change.
It's true.
So take the opportunity. It's free as well, so we're not touching your money. We can teach you, and it's interactive. It gets you to think, and that's what we really want. We want people to think, come up with those light bulb moments. All right. So if I do it this way, then I'll be saving this amount, and maybe I don't need to have 5 or 6 subscriptions, because half the time I'm not even, using all of them. So I could save that amount of money and maybe I could invest it. But what do I invest it in? Everyone's talking about crypto. What is crypto?
And we're going to come to that further along in this series. But for right now, Petra, thank you very, very much indeed.